is Mustafa, and these are my group members. Our topic is the contribution of the Maqasid al-Sharia in the infrastructure development of a developing country. Maqasid or Maqasid al-Sharia is an Islamic legal doctrine. Al-Maqasid is the Arabic word for goals or purposes. Maqasid also means intention, intent, objective, and aim. In Islamic jurisprudence, Maqasid can be defined as interest that is obtained by persons in this world and the hereafter, either by means of obtaining benefit or through prevention of harm. The Sharia generally is predicated on benefits to the individual and the community, and its laws are designed so as to protect these benefits and to facilitate the improvement and perfection of the conditions of human life on earth. The objective of Maqasid al-Sharia are to safeguard and protect ad-Din, the religion, al-Jasad, physical existence, al-Aql, soul and mind, al-Nasab, dignity, al-Mal, property, wealth, resources, etc. Following Maqasid al-Sharia will lead us to success in this world and the hereafter. Maqasid al-Sharia is everything that is needed to realize Falah, as faith is the most important ingredient for human well-being. Now, coming to the importance of infrastructure. Infrastructure are the basic physical and organizational structures and facilities like buildings, roads, power supplies, safe water, etc. that are needed for the operation of a society, enterprise, or a nation. Several countries around the world suffer from infrastructure deficits, which slows down their growth prospects, especially countries that are still struggling to develop. These developing countries need an instant step up to boost their infrastructure development so that they can facilitate market activities as well as social services to expand their economic growth. Keeping the current situation of the whole world in mind, infrastructure development is the need of the hour. Governments and private industries should join hands and come up with strong solutions for the problems that we face today. We need to understand one thing. When it comes to infrastructure development, it is very important to bring attention towards energy outputs, water bodies, distributions, the agriculture industry, information, communication technologies, healthcare, transportation, etc. as these are all considered to be priorities. Governments and private industries should encourage better use of resources that are more sustainable in nature. It is high time that nations start to think of such issues and solutions and actually bring them into practice. Sustainable development goals should not just remain as goals on a list, but they should actually be planned and achieved over a period of time. Now, my group members will inform you more about the topic.
How can Maqasid Sharia contribute and be applied to the infrastructure development of a developing country? One of the ways is that Maqasid Sharia can be applied in the infrastructure for securing water resources. This falls under the category of protection of life, since water is the basic need of humans to stay alive. It includes water resources management, treatment, and flood prevention to make sure that people get the water supply continuously without any trouble. Many developing countries are facing water crises. For example, India is experiencing a rapidly worsening water deficit as its population grows and urbanization rates rise. Let's make this into a scenario. Kartini is an 8-year-old girl who lives in India and deals with the water scarcity at her place on a regular basis. She doesn't have running water in her house, so she has to walk to the nearest water source just to get a drink of water. But her water source is almost a mile away. Not only for Kartini, but her whole family also needs the water for cooking, showering, and other personal use. She must make the trip for water at least 3 times a day. Unfortunately, there is another problem, which is that the water resources are contaminated. She had no choice but to drink the dirty water. It is such a hard situation for Kartini. Therefore, infrastructure development in securing water resources is highly needed to avoid this. Governments need to play their role properly to make sure that the country will be able to get water resources that will help them to survive. What is the possible solution for this crisis? Government can try to install solar panels to provide a clean and sustainable energy to pump water. The cost for the installation is quite high, but there is very little maintenance. It is cost effective because no fuel is used.
Infrastructure is one of the facilities and services that are provided by the government. As we know, infrastructure is important since it makes our life become easier. To develop a country, infrastructure is needed. Can you imagine if our country doesn't provide any infrastructure at all, like no public transportation, no hospital, no school, no road, no utility, and so on? How can our country develop very well?
I will give you a situation as an example if there is no infrastructure in our country. In Sarawak and Sabah, they technically have a lot of poor infrastructure, and this issue makes their daily life become worse and messy. So I will focus on their issue, which is internet connection. To make it clearer, I will create a short story regarding this issue. Emily is a teenager who lives in a village that has lack of infrastructure. One of it is an internet connection. They have a poor connection, thus it is difficult for Emily to use it because it is the main way for her to get more knowledge and information as it is helpful in her study. Besides, due to COVID-19, the Minister of Education decided to have online classes instead of face-to-face classes. Because of that, Emily faced difficulty accessing it since her village lacks an internet connection. Therefore, infrastructure is very important in order to make everyone's life easier. Without infrastructure, everyone's life becomes more messy. How can we want to go anywhere that we want without a good public transportation or road? Or maybe how should we survive without a good service such as hospital or school and so on? What I can say is infrastructure can enhance everyone's life, and with a good infrastructure, our economy will grow.
My name is Mohamed, and I'm going to talk about the infrastructure challenges in developing countries. Okay, so basically, to improve the infrastructure sectors in developing countries, a few challenges and obstacles need to be tackled so that the development can be preserved as a long-lasting investment as well as to attain the sustainable development goals. Okay, the first challenges to the low-income developing countries is that due to their financial constraints. Okay, so basically, cost of spending required for the infrastructure's public investment are quite high, considering that those poor countries not only want basic infrastructures, but they also desire to achieve the sustainable development goals. To achieve those kinds of development, a higher cost would be needed. Okay, it also can be stated that the infrastructure gap is too huge between the infrastructure investment needed with its actual spending.
To eye on Nigeria's capital markets, I'm Wale Famrewa. Now, the African Development Bank estimates that $350 billion is required over the next decade to address the massive infrastructure deficit in Nigeria. Now, this is far more than the government can muster to build roads, repair railways, and other infrastructures needed to galvanize economic growth and development. And today, we focus on the role of the capital markets in building the much-needed infrastructure in Nigeria. The provision of infrastructure to drive economic growth is one of the toughest challenges for governments and businesses across the world. Management consulting firm McKinsey has forecast a global infrastructure investment shortfall of $57 trillion over the next 15 years.
Yeah, the second challenge is that weak public investment management. Okay, it causes a public investment inefficiency. So basically, it happens due to human resources in developing country that is corrupted and also cannot adapt with any investment changes in the country. However, they can still improve their efficiency by improving management institutions such as structuring a departmental division for each department in the investment management. Okay, that way they can increase their productivity in each sector.
We have the market, but yet because of our governance system, because I'm sorry to say, because of the corruption at so many levels, it's been very difficult. So we have to find an alternative ways to deal with this, so that other monies can come in, beyond the normal government appropriation
Fund.
In a nutshell, infrastructure is such a foundational piece to everything that we know in terms of our quality of life that we cannot take for granted. And we all need to pay attention to this, and we all need to be prepared to pay for it. Infrastructure is a big portion of our economy and keeps so many people working and healthy. The investments that we make are investments made for our future, investing for the future generations and their health. Infrastructure is used by everyone in the city every single day. It could be defined as the heart to our community. Without the infrastructure, our economy will not function. Quality in healthcare means providing the care the patient needs and the patient requires it in an affordable, safe, and effective manner. Quality healthcare also means engaging and involving the patient so the patient takes ownership in preventive care and in the treatment of diagnosis. Infrastructure services are essential to achieve development targets in any economy. Some of its major dimensions include the level of economic growth, level of education, degree of modernization, status of women, quality of housing, distribution of goods and services, and access to communication. But neither human well-being nor economic growth is possible only through the provision of economic infrastructure as well as social infrastructure. Health and education, along with supporting infrastructure, can give economic growth a human face. By improving the quality of human resources and enhancing its capabilities, these indicators act as stimulants to growth. The linkage between infrastructure and economic growth is multiple and complex, because not only does it affect production and consumption directly, but it also creates many direct and indirect externalities, which involves large flows of expenditure, thereby creating additional. Without the proper investment infrastructure, the economy of a country will crumble. So here comes the importance of making the correct decisions. Good decisions will serve us for decades, and bad infrastructure decisions will burden us for generations.